everybody, I'm Tamika Rashid, and I'm here to present to you great opportunities to have discourse in the classroom. And I know during NTI, we have the opportunity to be able to reach our kids. So this is going to be a great focus for us to communicate back and forth with our scholars and have a rich, wealthy discussion. All right, so for today, I want to kind of give us some information on Socratic seminars. And with that, using Socratic seminars to build that healthy discussion, we can also incorporate reciprocal reading strategies as well to help break down text. So just want to review what Socratic seminars look like in the classroom. So as I said before, it's the wealthy discussion that helps us to capture our audience, which is our students, and have their voice be heard during lessons. And when we have that buildup of voice, students take the ownership and build our community for success. Next slide. All right, so here we have several different avenues that we can utilize for Socratic seminar. I've embedded PDFs for you so that you can utilize when we get back into the classroom opportunities for you to do a Socratic seminar and the NTI form of a Socratic seminar. So it's kind of two different ways that we can operate these. And because of NTI, we had to kind of build around the students. So I'm going to focus on NTI Socratic seminar. Before you get to the seminar, you have to front load. And when you front load, there's a series of questions that students will formulate to bring to the discussion. And when we have those questions based on the reading that we are doing, students can also piggyback on others to build from those questions and create discourse in the classroom. Now, if we were in the physical classroom, there are several roles that students may have. In those roles, we have someone that will be facilitating the conversation or like a little fishbowl, and then people who are observing. And when that happens, those students have the opportunity to coach, if you will, another peer to help them with that successful discussion. So they'll discuss. And then as the discussion is going along, we have those coaches in the back monitoring how they're doing. And then they'll break and then give information on how they can make the discussion a little bit wealthier. Now, since we are in NTI, that's going to be a little bit different. We won't necessarily have the particular observers or the coaches. So how we would do that in NTI, we would have everyone be the discussion group. And we'll facilitate maybe someone that can monitor the chat for us. We can have someone that can monitor those who raise their hand to talk. And always, always, always prior to having your discussion, kind of lay the ground rules or best practice for that discussion so it could be respectful, so it could be wealthy, healthy, and abundant. So when you have Socratic seminars doing NTI, you can make sure that your students know that this platform is for them and their voice will be heard. So as we have the chat monitors monitoring our chat through the discussion, we can have students who may not feel as comfortable turning on their mics to discuss. We can have those students in the chat comment, and then our chat monitors will chime in, or they might raise their hand to chime in. And of course, we have a person who has the hand monitor going on and saying, okay, oh, such and such have their hand up, and then they can speak. Or in the chat, students are free to chat and they give each other a respectful space to communicate. So that's the Socratic seminar during NTI. Okay, so as we are doing that, the discussion is formulating. I'm taking a back seat, or I'm actually leading our students to make sure that their voices are heard. We have a series of sheets that they can look at to make sure that their questions are developed and tiered and in the right direction. So when they do that, they can refer back to this sheet as many times as they would like. They can refer back to the actual passage that we are discussing as many times as they like. And then once they are in the actual discussion, students are able to build off of each other. So sometimes one student may answer a question which would make a text connection or a rich, wealthy discussion for all the other students to kind of join in on that discussion. Next slide. So I want to go over different aspects of this Socratic seminar in the classroom, which can lead to reciprocal reading strategies and utilizing these formats in our breakout rooms. Okay, so when we have our Socratic seminar, we want to get to the point where this is student-led, okay? So in our Socratic seminar, we can have the kids utilize several pods of breakouts where they can practice with each other, go over the material, formulate their questions, get wealthy information about what we are discussing. And when they do that, we can also use a reciprocal reading strategy role. Now, reciprocal reading strategies is a great opportunity for our kids to focus on particular roles that they can bring to the discussion. They can use to help break down text. They can use to help to evaluate what we are learning based on our learning target, or analyze a particular word choice, author's voice, etc. So when we are in the breakout rooms, the reciprocal reading strategy roles can help build on the Socratic seminar. So that is another form to help build discourse or discussion within our lesson. There are several different roles that students can do in the reciprocal reading strategy as they are in their breakout rooms. And if they're comfortable, they can actually hold their own Socratic seminar in the breakout rooms utilizing the reciprocal reading strategy roles. So those roles will consist of a predictor, summarizer, clarifier, and questioner. With that said, when we have the kids in these roles, we have to take not necessarily control of the lesson, because we want the students to have their voice heard so that we are building our connection and building our online learning community as a space for growth. So in this particular setting, when we do the reciprocal reading strategy roles, you can actually tier it or differentiate, if you will. Some students feel more comfortable with you leading the roles. For example, chunk a passage, read a little bit at a time, and then say we are doing this role as we read. And while that is happening, students can annotate for that particular role on the document, or create a separate sheet and use the roles and pull out text evidence to help support that role. And then we discuss. So once you are having your conversation or doing your Socratic seminar, you're prepping for that particular Socratic seminar, you have the students doing a reciprocal reading strategy role. So you can say, okay, scholars, we're going to read this passage, give them time to read, or if you have an audio, allow them to listen to a portion, because remember, we are differentiating the learning, and say we're looking at this through the lens of a summarizer. So what they'll do, they'll summarize certain aspects of the text in order to bring back to your whole group discussion what the text is about when you summarize. You can go through and be a predictor. So predicting gives us that ability to connect to the text and to understand or take ownership of what we are reading. So when we have the kids be predictors, we can actually kind of predict what's going to happen prior to it happening, and then have a conversation about that. So meanwhile, we're still chunking this information. We still are on that one snippet that we're looking at in this reciprocal reading strategy role. And we are having conversations about the role that we are all committed to completing before we move on to the next role. And then once we have that role, this is where Socratic Seminar can also step in, where we discuss that role. So having Socratic seminars doesn't necessarily have to look like one form or one model. You can tier it to fit your students so they can be successful. So if you're doing a reciprocal reading strategy role of a summarizer, you summarize the passage. You can have the kids talk about what they've summarized. You can have the kids put in the chat. You would say label summarizer in your chat. And so, the kids can also comment in the chat what they've summarized about the text. You can have them summarize 3 points. You can have them summarize 1 point, whatever the students feel comfortable with. And here, the Socratic Seminar roles step into place. You can have someone that is comfortable being a chat monitor and speak to the group about what's in the chat, or you can have your scholars unmute their mics, speak to the group about that summarizer role. Then you can move into questioner before you move to the next passage, because you've also summarized the first portion so the kids have some kind of idea or concept of what we're talking about in passage. And it's imperative that when we are in these roles, when you're doing reciprocal reading, for students to get that rich discourse from the article, passage, or the text that you're reading, have them make those text connections. Text to real world, text to self, text to text, which brings a broad range of information back to you. And the students get actually excited to start talking about their experiences when they're dealing with text, especially if the text is a diverse text where they can see themselves in the text and or their community around them. So that's for 2 roles in reciprocal reading. And I just showcased to you in those 2 roles the different formats you can use for Socratic Seminar. Because remember, during these particular reading strategies, we are kind of tiering so that we can meet our students and create discourse in the classroom, conversations, talking about what's going on during our online learning. And the kids absolutely really love the opportunity to have the ability to take ownership in their lesson. They feel as if they're actually teaching the lesson. And this is something that I usually tell my scholars. This classroom is yours. We are here. I'm just a facilitator to help guide you. So as you're doing your Socratic Seminar or reciprocal reading strategy, you're taking the opportunity to utilize your voice in this lesson. So when you do that, we have 2 roles. We've done summary, we've done questioner. Now we can go into clarifier. And please note, you don't necessarily have to do it step by step. And if you take a look or click on the links, you will actually see the documents that explains the roles and explains how you can utilize those roles in the classroom. Always, always, always tier your roles or conduct your roles based on your students, okay? So when we roll into the next portion, here you see the explanation of the reciprocal reading strategy and the roles that they operate. And you have actual question stems that they can use to help them to facilitate a wealthy discussion. So you can go then to clarifier. So this is the point where you start getting more of that vibrant, rich in-depth discussion with your students, because now we want to understand what we're going through with our thinking or our process of getting to that point of mastering that standard that we've set for our lesson. So as we are clarifying, we get some information from our students that help us to make text connections, figure out understandings of the text, figure out some things that they have misunderstood, or have some healthy disagreements, which will formulate more classroom discussion about what we are reading. And with the clarifier, we, on our NTI learning, we use that to produce more questions, so to produce more of the discussion. So for our NTI learning, this is what the clarifier, summarizer, predictor, and questioner will look like. However, if we're in the classroom, the physical classroom, those students would take this opportunity to read the passage, do the role, and then conversate or converse or talk about those roles and actually switch roles, so that we get a different view. And in those documents that I've provided, you will see the difference, how you can differentiate between the classroom and our online learning classroom. And with that said, you can also build on that where students are switching the roles. You can actually put them in breakout groups and have one particular group do one particular role, another particular group do another particular role as they're reading, and then come back to our all big group environment and talk about those roles. So then after we do that, we are rolling into basically understanding the text, being able to formulate thought and idea and concepts, which leads to the writing piece, the SAQ, ERQ, CFAs, whatever you're utilizing this particular lesson to help build on, will help the students to be more successful in that particular lesson. And when you're doing that, you can house this as your Socratic seminar. Socratic seminars doesn't necessarily during NTI learning or in the classroom have to look like one model. As I said before, tier it to your students so they can be successful in what we are doing. So with that, on your Socratic seminar, when we have the roles that we're doing in the seminar, it's best practice to have lead questions to help those students. Or we can have a student that just focused on questions to jumpstart the conversation or to get the conversation going. Whenever you might find students thinking about what they want to say, processing ideas, give them some time to answer, give them that wait time, which is okay. I know sometimes we get a little nervous when we have some wait time, but that's perfectly fine. Let the students have their thought, their process, the understanding of what's going on. Then they bring back rich discussion for that. So that's how you can tier those two with lessons inside the physical classroom or inside our NTI classroom, so kids can have a better understanding of what's going on with the text. Okay, next slide, please. So when we have our discussions, we have the opportunity for our students to be successful. Now, what happens if we try it the first time and it doesn't look right? That's okay. It is perfectly fine. Keep trying it again. The better you try, the more you try these particular strategies, the better you get with this discussion. It might be a little messy the first time. That's okay. The whole objective for us as educators is to be the guide and allow students to have their voice, allow students to have the opportunity to have the lead. It is student-led. It is student voice. It is student community. And we're building that for them so they can be extremely extremely successful in what we are doing. So if it messes up the first time, the second time, third time, fourth time, that's okay. Just keep doing it and revamping. And what happens is after you've completed your Socratic seminar, you have the students to reflect on that particular seminar. And on the document, you will see questions that are housed for them to do the reflection. And then we can talk about it, even in breakout groups or breakout rooms. Talk about how we could better our seminar for our community, how we can better our seminar to get the most out of our reading passages and the work so that we can build on being at least proficient with any kind of writing, with any kind of reading, with any kind of project-based learning. These particular reading strategies help promote our discussion in the classroom. They also help promote and build student-led, and it prepares them actually for our backpack success skills when they have to present, when they have to go up and talk about their strengths and how they are in the classroom as leaders. So these particular reading strategies or formats for discussion helps the students, and it helps to shine light on our scholars being academic, being abundant with the text, and in our classroom. So here's a couple of responses that I've had from my students who reflected. And remember, it's important, imperative that you always reflect on your lessons. Especially if you're doing a Socratic seminar or if you're doing reciprocal reading strategy, and have those students or your scholars lead that reflection to showcase what we can do to grow as a community, because that's our whole objective and goal, is to allow our students that growth that we need to see in them. So here are some comments that my students have made about the Socratic seminar. We just recently had one over a particular text. And in these comments, I was able to see, when they reflected, I was able to see some of the things that they liked, some of the things that they possibly didn't like and would change to make better, and given examples of what that could be to build up our Socratic seminar or utilizing the reciprocal reading strategy, and give ideas as to how we can make it abundant and productive to produce that conversation about the text. It is possible. Students are willing, they're ready to learn. They want to have that conversation. They want to mirror our classroom, our physical classroom, and these tools and strategies help do that when we incorporate them in our lessons. And like I said, it is extremely easy to go ahead and allow students to have their voice. They want to have that ownership of the particular lesson. And you can definitely see the progression and the growth students make. So at one point throughout your academic career, during that year, you want to be able to say, okay, scholars, we are going to read this particular text. Let's go ahead and get into our Socratic seminar. And they will actually take lead and start operating to get into the Socratic seminar role or the reciprocal reading strategy role. It is absolutely beautiful to see when students take that ownership or take that leadership into the classroom. And you can have certain leaders to help facilitate those roles if you have some students that may be a little shy, that don't want to actually facilitate the leadership role. So it's possible, and it happens, and it's great, and it's abundant. These particular reading strategies, by the time if you do them more often, students become extremely comfortable with it, and it's like a norm for them. So I would highly suggest, as best practice, incorporate these particular strategies into your classroom. Have your students have this ability to have open conversation about what we are reading, what we are learning, and have the ability to facilitate this on their own. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, please email me, let me know. At the end of the presentation, if you want to click on the exit slip, It's a Jamboard. Fill it out, leave your email address, and I will actually get back to you if you choose to answer more questions about Socratic Seminar and Reciprocal Reading Strategy to formulate discourse in the classroom. Thank you so much. I'm Tamika Rashid.